My name is Jupiskar, and I'll take you on a journey with me into team topologies and platform engineering. Now, let's start with DevOps. It's shown the value of smaller, autonomous teams that are aligned to the flow of the business, developing and releasing software in small iterative cycles, and adjusting next steps based on feedback from users and telemetry. However, the cultural and organizational changes needed for actual fast flow software delivery have never really been addressed. Yet having the right understanding of how to evolve team structures and those interactions is critical as software continues to eat the world. Platform engineering is an emerging trend that seeks to address consuming services at scale. Understanding what platform engineering is and how to design team structures and interactions to make those platform teams successful is the next step. So in this talk, I'll dive into the importance of addressing these organizational and cultural aspects in any platform engineering journey. Now, let's begin by explaining flow, because that's the core concept behind all of this. Flow, in our context, is about getting code into production fast. It's about simplifying everything in your path to make that happen. It's about resolving dependencies across different teams and domains, as well as untangling the ball of technology that extends well beyond your own team. So fast flow is about simplifying that whole socio-technical landscape around you so that you can deliver more value more quickly and more consistently. And yes, I am talking about DevOps in a non-technical way, I'm sorry. And I'm specifically talking about the collaboration, continuous improvement, and end-to-end responsibility aspects. Note that these dependencies are complex by nature and exist for good or historical reasons. They come from constraints in software vendors or budget or historical state of technology, maybe even limitations in existing team structures, technical debt and shortcuts taken in the past, and a lot more. So due to all of this and all of this complexity, the golden rule is that your organization is unique and requires a unique approach. Some of these things that I'm telling you don't apply to you. Some things really, especially doubly, do. Some things will work for you, others will not. So with that out of the way, let's begin with this gem, showing Conway's Law kind of in a funny way. But Conway's Law is critical because it states that, and I'm paraphrasing, you ship your org chart as software. Even worse, people don't ever restrict themselves to the org chart to communicate across teams neatly about things they need. Instead, they will talk to whoever needed to get the job done. So org charts aren't really helpful when delivering software, and they even make it worse by placing people that need each other far away in different parts of the organization. So that doesn't make sense. However, with team topologies and the concepts in that book, we can flip it around and say that we model our organizational chart after the software we want to produce and the value we want to put into the market. So with team topologies, we have the tools to align the organization with the product architecture that we need. In other words, the design of the software is no longer separate from the design of the teams building the software. And we're using Conway's Law in reverse. Now, Team Topologies is a book that helps you flip around this narrative and puts teams first instead of technology. Simply put, fewer dependencies between teams means better software. Fast flow requires restricting unnecessary interaction between teams to optimize for flow. So intense collaboration isn't needed for many parts of software delivery, while noting that it is important for novel new work. The book helps you structure teams in your organization to either deliver customer value or support those streamlined teams. And streamlined teams is a new term, so first let's look at what those teams are for a second, so we can understand the larger structure of where platform teams fit in later. So with value streams being primary business processes, streamlined teams are closest to revenue of a company. They're at the top of that pyramid, meaning they have little or no upstream dependencies, but many downstream dependencies. These teams, in essence, are the money makers of the company. However, these teams can only do so much. They should focus on that value stream and not on all of the technical work needed to make that happen. Because there's an upper limit to any team size based on Dunbar's number, and as a result, there's a limit on how many any single team can do. That's their cognitive load. This in turn then suggests a limit on the size of the software systems and the level of complexity of domains that any team should work with. Teams can simply not do it all. Combined with the fact that developing and operating software has a lot of technical and infrastructural dependencies, it starts to make sense to group those overarching technical dependencies in central groups. And that's where platform teams come in. As one of the core 4 team types, groups of platform teams work on the underlying infrastructure so that the streamlined teams don't have to worry about things that must be in place for them to release high quality software. Platform teams usually take responsibility for the cloud infrastructure, container platform, virtual machines, networking, storage, load balancing, monitoring, identity and access management, CI/CD, databases, and so much more. Note that these teams only provide these as standardized components, like car manufacturers not creating their own tires, but integrating existing products into their assembly line to actually build cars. Now, the car maker is still responsible for putting the tire on the car, but they don't need to care about all the details of manufacturing the tire, and they can just, slap it on. Note, and rest assured maybe also, that we're not back to separating dev and ops. The streamlined team still uses all of those platform components to do both dev and ops, and you build it, you run it still holds true. It's just that we're taking away a lot of the common challenges and grouping those into platform teams. The key value that these groups of platform teams provide thus are that they take care of off-the-shelf components that are ready to use. So streamlined teams don't need to build those themselves, and since they already exist, that speeds up their delivery. They also don't need to care about the implementation details, since experts in the platform teams take care of it, leading to higher quality and less cognitive load in those streamlined teams. Thirdly, they can just consume it without complex interactions with the platform teams, since it's usable in a self-service, self-describing way with APIs and documentation. By reducing the interactions required to consume that component, the streamlined teams become more autonomous and can flow faster. And that's the best way to think about platform teams. They make all of the technical complexity needed to deliver and run software just go away, so that the streamlined teams can focus on solving business problems with their software. Now, platform teams really deliver a commodity, and those don't need complex interactions. I mean, when was the last time you had to file a support ticket with AWS to deploy a VM? As a service enables us to define a standard automated way to interact with that service, no human interaction required. In addition to the service, platform teams and other experts in the organization can facilitate streamlined teams with expertise through coaching and best practices to optimize and remove technical impediments. This is, for instance, the case when experts in one area, like databases, help a streamlined team to optimize how they use databases, even if that streamlined team consumes that database as a service from a platform team. This mode is really about sharing best practices, sharing knowledge that aren't codified into the platform offering itself, making sure the streamlined team has the knowledge to operate autonomously and independently. This kind of facilitating interaction tends to be temporary, with these experts traveling between teams based on demand. All right, so that was a very quick overview of the 4 team types and the 3 interaction modes, and how it relates to platform engineering. Sounds good, right? But how do you get started? A good starting point is to find a common challenge, something technical that multiple teams are forced to do, but isn't really part of their day-to-day responsibility. In other words, look for where there's a gap in the organization's capabilities. Technical dependencies that sit lower in the stack are great candidates, like containers, VMs, databases, identity and access management. Make sure that it's a small component with ideally a small scope of teams dependent on it, so you can be successful with a first iteration and then create a ripple effect over time. Let a team start working on that single common solution that all of these teams are going to use, reducing waste of duplication, complexity, and their cognitive load. Note that you'll likely need some top-down support from your and the other team's managers, because to others it's going to feel like you're taking a step back, redoing something that these teams already took care of. Now, this idea of slowing down before you can speed up comes from Wiring the Winning Organization, a recent book that I highly recommend. And it's a concept called slowification. Now, this concept is about removing the pressure on that one thing temporarily so that you can replace it with a better substitute. Think of it as the organization honing its skills to solve that one particular problem, like stopping to saw for a moment just to sharpen the saw. Now, if managers don't have your back to do this and cannot explain to the rest of the organization why it matters, the initiative is doomed, because to the outside world, it looks like you're not doing the day-to-day work of offering that service. However, the team is working in a completely different mode of thinking called System 2 thinking. Slow, effortful, consciously creative. It just looks different, and that may need some managers backing to continue to do that. Now, if you want to learn more about this, especially for data-driven organizations, reach out to me. I've been working on a creativity versus data-driven workshop that uses these both systems in practice. Great, okay, so we know a little about how to get started. It's important to realize that the team structures and responsibilities are just a snapshot in time, and that long-term continued success lies in addressing these changes in team structures and interactions as the organization matures, instead of holding it onto them as, one-time static structures. They simply must evolve. That also implies that there's no ideal state or single definitive team topology, but rather several inadequate topologies that may work for any one organization. And also that the target is constantly moving. Now, the last big topic I want to touch on is how to pick the right topology as you grow bigger and beyond that first success. This is a massive topic in and of itself, and I'm barely skimming the surface of what needs to be done to be successful. But to give you a little bit of an impression, DDD, domain-driven design, is a massive toolbox of methodologies you can use to cope with this ever-changing dynamic of teams, domains, technology interactions. It gives concrete handles on how to figure out how team structures should evolve and what teams should own what. Think of DDD as helping you think about your architecture from a reverse Conway's laws perspective. How can we use logical business and technical domains to structure our teams so that we can influence the software we'll end up with? Now, a simple methodology you can use to get started is the independent service heuristics. It's a methodology not from DDD per se, but inspired by it. Comes from the Team Topologies book, and it helps organizations discover rough boundaries between teams by looking at whether that component or interaction could be offered as a standalone SaaS service. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to explain too much about this methodology, but the idea behind it is to stimulate conversation and provide kind of a frame of thinking about these basic domain concepts. After using a different methodology to identify potential domain boundaries, it makes sense to dive into them using workshopping and other techniques in DDD. However, it's important to note that reality is messy. Organizing for fast flow means that we're not ever creating the perfect team structure. Duplication and inefficiency are inescapable as organizations continue to evolve, adjust to market dynamics, etc. You're never done. At any moment in time, things are incomplete and incorrect at best if you look at the whole picture. Because again, it's a structure in motion that slightly lags reality. These things are completely fine, and it's very much about trending in the right direction instead over time, increasing flow, not about creating the perfect team structure at any snapshot or any moment in time. Wow, okay, so this has been an incredibly fast-paced introduction to how team topologies and platform engineering interact. I do hope I've given you enough to get started, but I'm sure I haven't answered all of your questions. So feel free to reach out if you do. My contact is on the slide. And I do have a number of workshops and trainings available, especially in the world of data engineering relating to team topologies and creativity and more of this. Wow, so this has been a wild ride. An incredibly fast-paced introduction to how team topologies and platform engineering interact. I do hope I've given you enough to get started, but I'm also sure I haven't answered all of the questions you may have. So feel free to reach out if you do. My contact's on the screen. And I do have a number of workshops and trainings available, especially in the world of data engineering and how that relates to fast flow and team topology. For now, I want to thank you. I will see you in the next one.